The first episode of the third season of DuckTales came out this past Saturday, so it's time to review it. I'm John Barry, and today we are reviewing DuckTales Challenge of the Senior Junior Woodchucks. Episode 2 for Season 3 will be coming out about an hour after this video comes out, so stay tuned for that. But right now, let's focus on the first episode. So, the premise of this episode is that Huey and Violet are both Junior Woodchucks. We find that out by Violet, and that's the character that we were introduced kind of near the end of the previous season, as another friend for Lena and Webby. So what is going on in this episode? Well, they're both are going for the Senior Junior Woodchuck position, and there can only be one Junior Woodchuck elevated to that position rank at a time. So, what do? It's quite simple. It's a race to the top of a mountain, and we get to see that journey unfold. And of course, this episode is very much a character developing journey for Huey. Like, he is the star of this episode. While yes, there is a B part involving Scrooge McDuck and all the other DuckTales characters, this episode very much is focused on Huey. And while Violet does play, I think, an important part in said arc, she hasn't gotten her own story yet, is what I'm saying. This is very much where Huey is learning a lesson. And that lesson that he is learning is that he doesn't have to be the best at everything. He doesn't have to succeed all the time. And he actually gets a patch for failing. Oh man, that kind of reminds me of the Fireside Girls from Phineas and Ferb, where they seem to have a patch for about everything. I don't know what in the real world of scouting, because I never was a Boy Scout or Cub Scout or anything like that. So I don't know if they really do have patches for everything. But if you were, let me know. But I do kind of like the idea, at least in fiction, of these scouting type organizations. They just give out patches for everything, including failure. But failure is important, as Yoda did say, the greatest failure teacher is. And that is so much true for Huey in this episode. He really does learn by failing. He's grown as a character, and he probably needed the most character growth of any other triplets. Louie got his character growth at the end of Season 2. That was his character growth. And with Dewey, he got it in Season 1 with uncovering the mystery of what happened with Stella Duck, their mother. So I could go into the very specifics of all this what Huey does on his journey, but I think the end result in this case might be a little better. But yes, he does learn, and there's you see him being good, smart. You also see him basically conjuring a talking Junior Woodchuck guidebook in his head to help him. So almost like how people sometimes talk aloud to process their thoughts. That's essentially what he does, just by basically imagining that the Junior Woodchuck guidebook can talk to him, since he isn't allowed to have it on him. That was kind of there for laughs, and even he was surprised that he did that he basically produced an imagination in his own head. It's kind of interesting, but there is one thing I think very specific I do want to talk about. Huey and Violet are climbing up a tree to get to the next marking post, some trail post. I forget the exact number trail post, where they need to plant flags on the way to the final one. And Violet falls down to a low branch on that tree, and of course there's a Junior Woodchuck guide, a rule for the Junior Woodchucks that you never leave another Junior Woodchuck behind, but Huey does. And through all this, you can see him kind of almost slowly unraveling. Every time he does something not probably the best thing to do, he knows it's not, he just gets more, not deranged, but just more exasperated. And then once they're almost to the final trail post, and Huey is about to fall into lava. I gotta say, that's kind of dangerous, but it's a cartoon. But Violet saves him because she built a hang glider to get across the lava rather than using a rope like Huey was doing. And that I think is what really sparked Huey's growth in this episode. That he firmly saw that was a better Junior Woodchuck than him in this instance. Probably because, he really did learn that he wasn't the best. No, he wasn't his best either. And he acknowledged that and was willing to accept it, which is a tremendous amount of character growth. And also, I just want to say, Violet, she called Huey Hubert nearly the entire time, which I found kind of interesting very much. And also that Nina was teaching, and Nina also taught Violet about, friendly competition banter, which I thought was kind of interesting. But every single time Violet, did the competition banter, she apologized immediately and said it was the banter speaking, which I think speaks to her character as well, even though this was primarily a Huey episode. But I do want to touch on the B plot with everyone else, what they're doing. What they're doing? They're going on an adventure because Scrooge wants to follow a map left by the person who founded the Junior Woodchucks, whose name I all of a sudden can't remember. And they also are encountering this bird which has that Dewey describes an incredibly catchy tune. And they go on an adventure. Apparently there's lightning rain, or whatever that means. But eventually they get to the same place that Huey is going to as well. And they discover the founder of the Junior Woodchucks lost, guy, not as a guidebook but diary journal of all her adventures. And and I should say along the way Scrooge wants to stick with the map and not go off the trail. And there's one point where he says, we gotta follow the map, but it's history, and then everyone responds eventually you don't have to follow a map. And he asked, who told you that? And they all responded, you did. And that was a moment of realization for Scrooge. He got so caught up with following the trail of his idol, because we do get described that a novel about the founder of the Junior Woodchucks was the first book Scrooge ever got, and he read constantly. So Scrooge was so focused on following his idol, he forgot his own advice, basically. And with that bird and all that, he realized, oh yeah, that's right. So not too much of a character development, but more just because you're following your idol, you don't actually have to copy everything your idol does. Which I think is a very good message to give to kids. It really is. You don't need to copy your idol. You don't need to copy the person you admire most. You can still admire them and all that, but you don't have to copy them. And I should say, during all this, there's a mosquito that's been bugging Donald. And what we found out at the end, the mosquito was a bug. I should specify, by bug, I mean a listening/video device. So Fowl, which was set up to be, at the end of the previous season, to be this season's villains, was spying on them, and now a race to find those lost treasures that the founder of the Junior Woodchucks never did find is on the way. So that's going to be the bulk of, I think, Season 3, the overarching story of Season 3. And that's pretty much the main thing I wanted to talk about. There's some smaller things I could discuss now, things here and there that show, and there's a couple of things I could mention. It seems like Lena was adopted by Violet's dad. It wasn't that clear, but it's possible. And Doofus Drake apparently is also a Junior Woodchuck. I know he was in the original DuckTales series. I didn't know for sure in this series because they really changed his character in kind of a good way to provide a contrast to Louie. Whether he always was or after the events of a season 2 episode where Louie teamed up with Goldie and one of Scrooge's old flames to scam basically Doofus Drake's birthday party out to all the party favorites. I don't know, because there's a whole lot that went on in that episode. Maybe somehow connected to that, or he's always been. I just don't know. But I do kind of like that. It's bringing in an aspect of a character that they definitely did change in the new series, but they're bringing in an old aspect, which I do kind of like. And the other thing I do want to mention that I picked up on is this is only many people probably did hear this, of course, but those of us who ship Dewey and Webby probably did pick this up on, because when Dewey and the bird I had mentioned earlier, which apparently was the descendant of a pet of the founder of the Junior Woodchucks. But anyhow, they were kind of singing and dancing with the bird's kind of chirping noise, which was more of a sounded more like an instrument than actual bird chirping. But anyhow, because Web responded, "Oh, they're both cute," and of course, if you ship them, Dewey and Webby like I do, like you definitely would have picked that up. So that's the episode. I think it was a good, solid start of the episode. I do think, as I said earlier, this is a very much a Huey-centric episode, and I think that's a very good thing. There's a lot of aspects of Huey that I do relate to. If you watched my video where I sorted DuckTales characters into Hogwarts houses, I put Huey in Ravenclaw, and that's the house I'm in, so yeah. But that's all I have for you today. So if there's anything you'd like to add on, the comment section is down below. Do you have any rebuttals to any of the points I made? Let me know. Also, be sure to check out the links in the description. We got my Facebook and my Twitter, along with my Discord server and my Patreon if you'd like to support this channel. Also, be sure to like the video if you haven't already, or dislike it if you didn't care for it. The choice is up to you. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel for future DuckTales reviews and Star Wars content as well. I also hope to be doing some more sorting fictional characters into Hogwarts houses as well. And there's a bunch of other stuff I can mention. But feel free to check out the videos or the playlist on screen now. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever your life is like a hurricane. DuckTales. Woo!